Welcome to the Ryan and Nate's Business Podcast. Come listen to these two blue-collar business guys. Nate, your go-to automotive repairer, and Ryan, your local heating and air contractor, talk about business, how to help you, and hear stories from our local unsung heroes. Community matters to them, and so does a healthy business. Here's Ryan and Nate.
All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast today. We have my good friend, Matt Bielecki, with us. He is the business banking representative for M&T Bank. And today, I'm just excited about being able to talk about small business and what a good relationship with their bank can be. Like, what should they expect? So that's why we had you on. So thanks for coming into our podcast room and being here with us today.
Yeah, awesome. Looking forward to it. I'm glad to be here.
So for the most part, we wouldn't say for the most part, but often we have our friends in. So this is what's super fun because it's just a fun conversation.
Yeah, we just talk to our friends all day.
Yeah, so it's friends, but then even people we don't know, they become our friends. So it's like friends we haven't met yet.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of friends that are successful. Right, like we're in a good community.
Blessed. Yep.
Super blessed to have people that are very accomplished, like Matt.
So that's a good business nugget that you just dropped right off the bat. First 30 seconds. Yeah,
right.
Surround yourself with good people.
Okay, I didn't even remember what I just said.
Yeah. Surround yourself with good people. Walk and live and be known in a good community, and you just end up having. When something comes up, you're like, hey, I got a guy. I can call a guy. Mm-hmm. And so Matt's our bank guy.
He is our bank guy, yep.
And I mean, he's an employee of M&T, but he's been around banking for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so we want to hear about M&T and your relationship there, and some of your how you've progressed in your career, but then also just in general business banking. Like, what can small business get from their bank? What should they expect? So,
but he's a super accomplished guy. So, talk to me about that.
I don't know about that.
You're a running back in college.
Yeah, you did some research.
Yeah, he was a running back in college.
Yeah.
You're tall to be a running back, though.
Yeah, people say that. I was actually 10 pounds, actually 15 pounds heavier, too, when I was playing football in college.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was a bit of a beast. I had good downhill speed, but I wasn't as agile. So, once I got the ball, I was downhill fast.
Okay.
So I wasn't much of a juker. I was lowering the shoulder and trying to run people over.
Like a Derrick Henry style?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you're a big guy. And Derrick Henry's a big guy. I mean, you've seen that guy's legs. They're like this. It's insane.
But Reggie Bush was playing at USC when I was playing, and I used to watch Reggie Bush play, and he was so shifty, and I was like, man, I wish I could be like Reggie Bush. But I'm like, nah. But I would watch him, on Saturday nights, and be like, I got to get some of those skills. But never was shifty, never had a good spin move, good stiff arm, but not shifty.
All right, so tell us how you went to college, running back, you transitioned into banking. What's that story? How'd you get to?
Well, that's actually funny. You tie those two together because they're actually connected.
Yeah.
So I was, so I played football, basketball, played sports my whole life. When I was getting recruited for football from different schools, University of Rochester was one of those schools I got recruited by. And there was a guy that I got connected with on my recruiting trip who worked for M&T Bank. And we connected, we had lunch on the recruiting trip. Good dude. Actually ran the investments and insurance business at the bank. He was the president of M&T Securities. So, and he was a running back, and we just had a good conversation. He was there to talk to the recruits about Rochester and about opportunities after that. And so I ended up going to Rochester, and I stayed in touch with him throughout college just because he was a good guy. He helped me get there. And I had no intentions of working for a bank when I was in college.
What did you want to do?
Yeah. What did you want to do?
I wanted to be part of the CIA or the FBI or work for the State Department.
I could see that.
Yeah, it was funny. When I was a little kid in kindergarten, I created this. We had to create this little image of what we wanted to be, and I created an FBI agent.
Okay.
I built this thing out. That's what I wanted to be. So no intentions of working for the bank. But as I got towards the end of school, as a senior, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Spent 4 years at college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So because I had continued to stay in touch with this guy, he's like, hey, why don't you come work in banking? We have a great leadership development program that you can get into, try it out, and then kind of see how it goes. And Yeah, that's how I started in banking in 2009 through a management and development program in the retail bank.
Man, I'm just driving this point home about just the community hang out with, like opportunities.
Connections are key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really, really good.
Yeah. So I started in 2009. Through this.
And what did you do in 2009? And then you probably had 100 jobs between now and 2009 within M&T, right?
Yeah. So I've been with the bank since 2009, started in the management development program in retail. So I was in a bank branch. So I started essentially as a teller and worked my way up to be an assistant manager at the end of the program. But throughout that time, I got connected to all the different divisions of the banks. We'd go up to Buffalo, where we're headquartered, and we would learn about different divisions. We would meet the executives. We would do team building stuff. We would do leadership development stuff. So we're learning the bank, but then we're learning like how to operate a retail branch. So I learned all the way from the teller up to the management side, and then
you were a teller
for a couple weeks.
That is awesome.
I was not a great teller.
Did anyone come? I always imagine like some kid coming in with like his piggy bank jar and being like, "Bam!" on the counter.
I never had that.
Did you have it? No.
I was nervous. I was like, I don't want to mess up this cash transaction. I don't want to deposit a check or cash a check that's not a legitimate check. Like fraud is out of control. Yeah. More so now than it was back then. But I didn't want to like mess someone's money up, like the cash I had in my hand. So I was slow. I like took my time to make sure everything was okay.
So you said you were only there for 2 weeks. Is it because you were on a different track, but they wanted like everyone to at least put some time in at the teller level? Is that why?
Yeah. So the idea is you want to learn every position of the branch through this program. So in order to kind of coach and develop tellers and know the operations of the branch, because a lot of that is behind the teller line, they want us to be a teller. So we know like, hey, that when you cash a check, this is what you look for. When you're depositing a check, when you're doing these different transactions, this is what to look for.
Yeah.
So
I hate messing with money. I worked at Golden Corral, and I love this. Is probably still my second favorite job to this day. I love what I do now, but my second favorite.
Because you got the leftovers?
Nah, dude, it straight wasn't for the food. I loved. I don't know. It was just a game to me, and it was just a game. So I was the host guy and sat people or whatever, and the owner would be like, "Hey, man, we have like 14 or 20 military members just came in," and they're like, "Oh, they can sit right here," and I just like loved every minute of it. But they put me on the cashier one time, and I was like $20 off, and dude was like, "You're never touching the cash register again." So I hate messing with the money, and I was so nervous, like just giving people their money back.
Yeah, man, same way.
Nerve wracking.
Yeah.
No one uses cash anymore anyway, so you'd probably be pretty good. I feel like you could moonlight.
I can go back to Golden Corral.
Yeah. I think you can go back to Golden Corral.
Great. I've reached enlightenment.
I'm learning something new every podcast about you. Like I can't imagine you being a host.
Really?
At a restaurant, yeah.
Oh, I loved it, dude. I had a little walkie-talkie. Yep, they could sit right here. And then like when I wanted people to get up, I would just like start taking their plates, and they'd be like, "I wasn't done with that." I'd be like, "Oh yeah, we're just really busy. Let me take that for you." Like,
How was your greeting when they walked in?
Very good question, because it's the most important thing.
No, I didn't have to greet anybody. I was at the end of the row. Like the greeter sent them to me, and then it was my job to seat them.
Yeah.
So I was a seater. I don't know. What do you want to call me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's nothing worse. I don't think there's an
official position at the Golden Corral handbook. Yeah. So
I judge restaurants by that. It's like I often go in and like, why would you put this person as the host? Like there's no eye contact or, it's just like, like I immediately, it could be a great restaurant. I'm not going to name some in our local area that I've been to. And it's like, man, the host spot is so, so important.
Yeah. And I really dislike standing there and being like, okay, do I seat myself or what's going on here?
Because the rules are like, there's so many different ways they do it. You don't know the rules when you go in, especially this first time. So it's important.
I hate when someone doesn't sit me at a booth and I'm right next to the booth and I feel weird being like, can I sit at the booth? You know what I mean? I just feel like pretentious. And like there's a table. I don't know. I'd rather sit at the booth, man. It's comfy.
All right, so let's pull it back.
Yeah, let's pull it back.
We've traversed some ground from football to banking.
Started off
being
as a teller. What was your next job?
Yeah, so my job during that program, it was never specific a teller. I was specific as a teller. I was essentially a management development trainee for the whole year. So after I graduated the program, I was actually a business development officer. So I worked with the branch manager on essentially managing the business relationships that the clients has at that branch, and also working with individual clients on their personal banking needs. So I did that for a year. Then I moved to be an assistant manager for about a year, and I was promoted to a branch manager. So I ran our branch over in Fells Point for 2 years. And then I was...
You ever have any Ravens players come in?
No.
For real?
No.
You ever meet Steve Bisciotti?
No.
Oh, that's asinine.
No.
If I'm branch manager of M&T Bank, I'm putting in the contract. I at least get to like hang out with Steve for 5 minutes.
You want to go to like the box seats.
Yeah.
At the stadium.
I weasel my way into 1 or 2 a year anyway, so I love the club, or they're not called club, but what are they called, Matt?
The suites?
Yeah, the suites.
Yeah.
Yeah. I weasel my way into a suite.
Matt said we're coming now anyway.
Yeah,
'cause we had him on
Yeah,
the
exactly.
I'm gonna
podcast.
reserve. I'm gonna reserve.
I already have it set
I
up.
thought
with
that's
Matt
why
later
I'm
this
here.
year.
That's the cost of
Joe
admission.
Flacco's coming back, baby. Let's go.
Nice. Yeah. So I was in Fells Point 2 years as a branch manager. Then I moved to be a commercial branch manager at our kind of our headquarter location downtown. And then I was there for a couple of years, and I was promoted to be a regional manager. So I oversaw the branches in Baltimore City for 7 or so years. And that was interesting. And just leading people and managing people at a younger age was, a huge learning process for me. Coming out of school and thinking about, okay, it's just about like making people happy and creating a fun, engaged work environment, which is very true. But there's a lot around accountability, structure, process, caring for people that I just had to learn throughout the years. And then, that was a huge learning experience when I stepped up to be a regional manager, because I was no longer in a branch with a team and like can see everything that was going on. I was stepping away, and I covered 13 branches and had 100 or so employees underneath me. And so you can't be in every spot at every time, and trying to look at the numbers and manage the numbers, but also managing by going side by side with the managers and the bankers to coach in that way. So that was a huge learning experience, stepping from the manager role to the regional manager role. And then, just recently I switched over to be a business banking relationship manager. So I went from leading and managing people to now working directly with small business owners, ranging from startups up to $30 million in revenue. And I was doing that before as a branch manager, and I coached my team and met with clients as a regional manager in the business banking space. And I love doing it. But this was a kind of a shift over to a different division, just focus solely on business banking. So it's been an interesting journey over the 15 years, but always with M&T Bank. Yeah, I love the bank. It's been a great place to work. But it's been an interesting journey over 15 years.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the caring for people. What does that look like different amongst different people or in your career? For Beltway, I've learned a lot about how to care for people, and I'm not saying I'm an expert at it at all, but I've realized, I think the biggest thing is, well, one care is for one person doesn't mean the care for another. One person might need money, the other person might need time. The other person might be words of affirmation, another person might need a gift. So, what does care look like for you?
Yeah,
caring for 100 and some people over time.
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's been a journey. So when I first started managing and leading people, I kind of had the expectation that everyone would be like me, right? Like everyone would want to be cared for like I would care for, and they don't. I didn't need that extra level of motivation or coaching, so to speak. You told me to do something, I was on it, I would get after it. So when I became a branch manager, I just kind of figured that's like what people did. So I was pretty numbers driven and didn't necessarily do a great job of connecting with my team and saying, hey, like, tell me about yourself. Like, what's going on? I would start one-on-ones and just have like a report and the numbers there and be like, okay, here's what we got to do. Here's what's working well. Here's what's not working well. And I got feedback over the years of like, hey, Matt, you got to take time to connect with people and pause and be like, hey, what's on your mind? What's going on? And learning more about the person than about like the productivity. That was a huge thing. And Yeah, it's hard to lead people if they don't trust you and they don't know that you care about them. And I'm someone who I care, but I don't always articulate that very well. Like I don't always communicate that. My employees have told me that. My wife tells me that. Like I gotta communicate that. You know?
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Being able to just have a good conversation. I imagine it was also challenging having different branches, right? Because you're not in person with all these people.
Yeah, correct. And when I stepped into the regional manager role, I originally stepped into a role where someone had been there for a couple years, but she had retired and was kind of managing in a way where she wasn't as involved in the branch. Like she wasn't visiting the branch that often. She wasn't going on as many business meetings with the branch managers. And I'm someone who's like, hey, let's do this side by side. We're going to go do it together. And I'm going to give you feedback and for the purpose of helping you get better, of course. But the team just wasn't used to that. So they were like, oh my gosh, Matt's coming here. Am I going to get fired? What's going on? So it was like, we were misaligned on kind of what the expectations were. So yeah, it was a bumpy road initially because people were like, what's this dude about? And I'm like, hey, I'm here to help. But they weren't used to that type of leadership.
Right. Has that translated into doing business banking now? Like getting to know people, like now they're not employees.
Yeah.
But they're business owners.
Yep. Yeah. So as I grew as a leader in terms of connecting with employees and taking the time to understand them, that translates very well to working with small business owners where I'm now being conscious of taking the time to be like, hey, let me learn about you as an owner. Let me learn about what's going on in your life. Let me learn about what's going on in the business. How do you operate? How do you make money? What are your challenges? So instead of just coming in and talking about products or pushing solutions, I start with, hey, how do I understand this person? How do I understand the business? How do I understand how they operate? So I can actually provide suggestions and be more of an advisor and a consultant than someone who's just kind of slinging products. Because I have no idea what products help someone unless I understand what's going on with them and their business. So yeah, it's been a cool shift for me in terms of leading people and connecting with people just as a manager, as a senior manager, going to like translating those skills, working with business owners every day. It's been an awesome shift.
Getting into the weeds of, what you have to deal with day in day. I remember asking you, and I don't remember the answer, but I remember asking you about cash flow. How much do you qualify for a loan? There's a number associated with that is the first question. And then the second question would be, how much does it matter that the person that you trust or believe in the person, it's not all just numbers, is the second question.
Yeah. So I'll start with answering the second question.
Okay.
So I and a lot of others at M&T believe that relationships are very important. Mm-hmm. So understanding the person, understanding the business is a key thing. Mm-hmm. And we have what's called the 6 C's of credit. I don't know if you've ever heard of the six C's of credit.
Sounds riveting.
I will drop the 6 C's of credit on you here. So yeah, there are some of the C's that go to like facts, but there's some of the C's that go towards the person. So let's see if I can name them. So we've got character. So character is all about the business owner, what they're about, what's their background, what's their experience. I was actually just having a conversation with my underwriter today, and we were reviewing a deal, and the thing she started off with was talking about the owner and their experience. Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing that she honed in on. Before we talked about tax returns, before we talked about cash flow, she talked about the character of the owner.
Yeah.
So character is the first thing. Next thing is capacity. Capacity is your ability to repay the debt we're giving to you. Mm-hmm. So the business has to generate sufficient income to cover the debt, because we don't want to burden a business owner with debt. Mm-hmm. And we'll also have regulators that will come in and say, hey, why are you giving this company a loan if they don't have enough money to pay the loan back? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where that cash flow calculation comes in, to where we want to have, we call it 1.25 debt service coverage ratio. Mm-hmm. And that means we want $1.25 for every dollar of debt we give someone on an annual basis. Mm-hmm. So that's capacity. We talk about collateral. So are we giving a loan that is tied to a specific collateral? Like, what's the collateral worth? Is it a mortgage we're doing on a property? Is it equipment? So collateral. Conditions is like, what's the conditions of the economy? What's the status? Like, how How's the economy? What's the industry like? Like what's going on there? Credit score is the fifth one. Like, what's the person's credit score? Because that all comes in. It kind of ties to collateral. And the sixth one, capital. So how much equity is the owner putting into the deal? Are they putting equity into the deal? Do they have to put equity into the deal? What's their cash reserves? And what's their balance sheet look like in the business? Do they have equity in the business? Do they have, like, what's their retained earnings looks like? So yeah, all that goes into say, yes, we do look at the financials. The financials are important, and there is calculations that we look at, but the character and like what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the industry matters a lot.
So do you have to become, so you said conditions, so it's like the economy, that's a big deal. That affects all of us, but then the industry, have to become a student of each one of these industries, basically.
Yeah.
Not just the business owner's needs and wants and tension points. You have to learn his industry or her industry. Yeah.
Thankfully we have resources that helps us to do that. So we have resources that we can go to the bank and say, hey, this is the overview of the industry. This is what the trends are. And like, here are some of the metrics that we should look at. Like, what's the common leverage? What's the typical leverage for this type of business? So that we have all these ratios that we look at, so we can compare the financials of the business with like what the industry is. And then we also have clients that are in the same type of industry, so we can be like, all right, does this make sense in terms of the performance of a business in this similar type of industry? So yeah, it's nice to have the resources at our fingertip that the bank provides to have the industry knowledge.
How's the economy doing?
It's I would say it's shaky right now. There's a lot of uncertainty, just because interest rates
are going up.
Interest rates are increasing. You've got the stuff going on with the banks, Silicon Valley Bank. So there's some concern, like, all right, how stable is the economy right now?
Yeah.
Based on what I see from the clients I work with, people feel pretty good about what's going on. People they're not investing, or they're not doing stuff because of fear of the economy and uncertainty around that. Where I see most concern is just around the labor market. So I've had a lot of conversations with clients, and they're unsure if they want to grow because they may not have the ability to do the projects or do the work with the people that they have currently. And it's been tough to recruit people. So a lot of clients I'm talking to are talking about like the importance of retaining talent and making sure their people are taken care of.
And do you feel like that's across the board, or is there certain, like, because we're often talking to blue collar, professionals, the people that are, they're technicians of some sort, but then there's like the computer programmers of the world and things like that. So like, is it across the board that you're seeing this?
Yeah. Like I have an engineering firm. They're having challenges. I was speaking with a dentist yesterday, having challenges hiring people. So it's across the board. Yeah.
I have a lot of opinions on that.
Do share.
Yeah. My opinions on the labor shortage is, and the heating and air conditioning specifically, there's not a shortage of people. There's just a shortage of good people. I can easily go get 3 alcoholics that do HVAC and show up in a white t-shirt. I can easily do that. But to find the guy who is what we call the beltway, clean cut, takes care of himself, takes care of his family, is a good person. You got to pay him the most. That's really what it boils down to. You got to overpay your guys what you think they're worth. And not to say I think my guys are worth less, but you get to see how much they're actually worth if you're willing to pay them more. So I feel like if you pay, and it's the same way with the business Nate and I are looking into buying, it's not going to be our main squeeze. So we can, if the labor rate is higher on the P&L on that company, it's okay. And I feel like that's why I'm most excited about the opportunity of buying this company potentially. And we're in the way beginning phases of just looking at their stuff, but I think it's going to do really well because we're not going to care about it as much as we care about our own. Not everything's going to be on the line like it is as our own. So we can afford to pay a guy $3 more an hour than where he'd get somewhere else. Already at the top, okay, go to the top and add $3 in the construction world. I've done that pretty similar to here. I mean, there is room for growth at Beltway as far as paying guys, but I do think that there's people who pay, the top companies pay very similarly to what I pay my guys, but they have a lot better environment to be in. But soon, I would say probably 2 years from now, all I have to do, we have a plan on how we're going to up it. But about 2 years from now, we will be the best environment and the best paid, and the problem of employees is going to go away.
Yeah,
and then we'll be big enough that time 3-4 years down the road where we're going to start our school, and then we'll hire. We'll pay people to go to our school, and that'll be a whole another business model. I think the labor shortage is the toughest when people are starting out and they can't afford to offer the benefits. They can't afford, why should someone take a risk on you? That's where it gets real. But I think the bigger you get, the less friction you can create by just money solves a lot of problems.
Yeah. Well, your point around finding quality people is spot on. You can hire someone, but you've established a business and you've got a quality brand. You don't just want to bring on anyone if they can't do the job. And that's the same, this engineering firm I was speaking with. Mm-hmm. They can hire a student out of college, but they're looking for another level of an employee that they're just not getting from the student that comes out of college. And they're saying, we got to train them for 2 years before they get to the point that they're actually producing to the level that we want them to produce.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think with the pay thing too, pay obviously is important. People want to get decent pay, but the other thing I think is important is the creating an environment, to your point, where people feel good coming into work and they know that their manager, their boss, whatever, the owner cares about them as a person, and they're helping them advance in their career. If you don't feel like you're advancing, you're growing, and the person above you doesn't care about you, it's not going to be a good situation, and you're going to have challenges retaining people. So, yeah, I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, just in my industry, it's you go to a part house and the owner who's got alcohol in his breath and has a white shirt on, he's like, "Oh, there's no good people out there," and starts kicking the trash can. It's they just don't want to work for you, man.
Yeah.
And not to say that I'm any better, but I'm not an alcoholic.
That's why we talk about culture so much.
Yeah. Nate is the king of culture, man. I'll tell you that. He knows how to put a cycle loop in. He's done a very good job with that. I know it cuts you off, but I'm complimenting you, so just take it.
Yeah, interrupt me anytime you want to compliment me. But I think that culture piece, it's really hard to measure. One of the ways you can measure over a long period of time is your retention rate of employees. But that's really, really hard to convince an owner that thinks that his employees are like appliances in his house, that he pushes a button and they do this thing, and then he only pays attention to them when the dishwasher's not doing its thing, the dishes aren't coming out clean, and then he starts complaining. People aren't machines, and you got to treat them well. You talked about that earlier about learning that in leadership. I think you're a phenomenal leader, and it's interesting to hear how you've grown, and then more and more people were under your care. But I think culture is important. I think especially since COVID.
Yeah.
Because since COVID, people found out really quickly how their leaders had to be more strategic in how to connect with them and actually how to see them when people were working remote. And then when a business owner could just lay people off and the government could take care of them, what companies kept their people and what companies laid them off, a drop of a hat, And that's since COVID, people I think got a clearer picture of who they wanted to work for, and I think that's some of the churning of the labor market right now.
Yeah, and I think culture kind of starts with defining who you are, what's your why, what's your mission as a company, and then in challenging times too, you have that why, you have that purpose, you have your mission to fall back on, whether it be a corporate mission or your personal mission. So, and I think that's, if you want to create a culture, you got to define what you're striving for, and then you've got to create the behaviors and the activities that line to that purpose. That's honestly, that's one of the reasons why I've stayed at M&T for so long. We're very clear on what we're about and our purpose as an organization, and that's to make a difference in people's lives. So if we're striving to make a difference in people's lives and everyone at the bank is about that, then that's going to ripple through the organization. And, for the most part, I can say there's a lot of people at the bank who actually care about that. And when we bring people in from other organizations, they're like, dang, you guys don't just talk about that on your commercials. And it's not just like a slogan. You actually feel it when you talk to the people. Like they'll go above and beyond to make sure a customer's taken care of or to make sure a teammate's taken care of. So yeah, we have that kind of defined as our purpose. And then there's behaviors that the organization has that we've kind of said, hey, these are our values, these are behaviors, and this is kind of how the bank's going to operate. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've stayed at the bank for 15 years. Because I personally believe in that. I personally believe about we are here to help people, to serve people. So when the organization believes that and is aligned with what I believe, hey, we're good.
Would you say that that's M&T's superpower? Is that what defines them, puts them apart?
Yeah, we're a relationship-driven bank. So our purpose is to make a difference in people's lives, and then we do that by understanding our clients really well, understanding who they are as a person, who they are as an owner, and providing really good recommendations and solutions to help them out. So we're clear on, hey, this is our purpose, and this is how we achieve that purpose, and understanding our clients. And you can't understand a client unless you're connecting with them and learning about them. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's what makes M&T unique. Some of the larger banks don't necessarily have that same strategy. Some of the smaller banks have a similar strategy, but it's nice because we have the capabilities of a large bank, but we have that relationship-driven approach that it actually we care about the clients we're working with. We care about going above and beyond, and we actually care about helping them do what they want to do. So, yeah, I would say that's going to be the M&T superpower. Yeah. It would be that, and obviously every organization is made up of people, and I think if you have people who care about that, brings it all to life.
What can the average business owner what should they expect from their bank? Because I've had different relationships with banks before, and what you just described hasn't always been what I felt.
Yeah.
So what should a business owner be getting from their bank in that regard?
Yeah, they should be connected with their banker at least once a year. At least once a year.
Like a person.
A person.
A person, not a
1-800 number. That's just kind of someone that you don't know who you're going to get. You should have a person to call, to talk to, say you have a question on your account. Or what I like to do is sit down and at least once a year, and I try to do 2 times a year, is actually understand, hey, what's going on in the business? How are the past 6 months gone? What do the next 6 months look like? What are your goals? How do you plan to achieve that? How can I be the best resource for you in achieving that? So that helps because I want to know what's going to be on the horizon. Being reactive to things makes things really challenging when we're trying to get things done in a crunch. So yeah, I would say if you don't know who your banker is, that's probably a challenge to get things done. And because stuff happens, stuff comes up, and if you don't know who to call, it can just make things a little more difficult and a little more stressful. And it is pretty crazy. I've been in this role for a few months now, and even back when I was a regional manager, when I speak with clients or actually prospects of the bank, and they're like, "Yeah, I have no idea who my banker is," and I'm like, "Dang, that's too bad." But there's some people I don't care about that. There's some people who don't care about having a relationship, and that's fine.
But it's usually they don't care until something goes wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And then it's wait, I have a good friend of mine who is working with one of the big banks, and then it came down to he had this business opportunity. It came down that he needed to get this loan taken care of, and it was it's going to take weeks, and sorry, we can't get you that check.
Yeah.
And he was like, wait, I've been doing business with you. I think it was 15 years. And it's how can you just leave me like that? And so I think he ended up going to a smaller bank. But on the other side of it, some of the small banks don't have the horsepower to do what needs to be done. And I saw that during COVID as well. Some of the smaller banks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you have a relationship with your banker, not only does your banker know what's going on in the business, they can help you in those times when you need money or something, but they can also provide value on how to protect the account from, say, for instance, fraud. That's a conversation I'm having a lot with clients now is, hey, fraud is out of control these days, check fraud, ACH fraud. So here are some things you can do as a business owner to limit the likelihood that that happens, and then things that we can do as a bank to protect the account even more by adding these additional services. So, yeah, fraud can really jack things up when someone steals a copy of your check and starts creating checks and writing checks out of your business, or you have someone who's ACHing money electronically out of your account, and you log into your online banking and you're like, where did this $50,000 go that was in here? Like that stuff happens.
That sounds like a real story.
I mean, I've got stories for days when it comes to fraud. It's out of control these days.
Yeah. How should you protect yourself against fraud? I mean, is this kind of a simple IT guy handle majority of that? Do you need like some huge firm and pay a ton of money?
So there's a few things. Number one, I would pay as many things as you can electronically. Mm-hmm. So if it's web bill payments, ACH payments, even making payments by credit card, mm-hmm. you want to limit the exposure to your checking account. So even if you write a check, that check has your account number on it and your routing number. So if you pay someone with a check, you're opening up your account for someone to make a copy of that check or take your account number and routing number and electronically debit your account. So do as much as you can electronically or through a card so you're protecting your checking account. The second thing would be to have these services that have like an extra layer of protection on the account. So the bank has services that help prevent check fraud, help keep the account safe from check fraud, and then ACH fraud. So the bank has additional services that a business owner can use. Mm-hmm. There's also business insurance, and you can get cyber insurance through your business insurance. So it's an extra rider that you could have on your insurance policy to help cover the cost of fraud when it does happen. So I was just talking with a guy the other day who was like, hey, are you seeing fraud out there in the business world? I was like, yeah, it's out of control. And he was like, you can add an additional rider onto your business insurance policy that covers that.
Mm. Is that happening to small and medium and big businesses like alike? Or some because one school of thought is that when you're a small business, you're too small to be a target for that kind of thing.
So here's yes and no. So if you are a business that writes a lot of checks, you could be a small business that writes a lot of checks, or you can be a big business that doesn't write a lot of checks. But if you're writing checks, every time you have a check, that account number and routing number is on that check. So whether someone's putting that check in the mailbox, like people break into mailboxes, the blue mailboxes, and steal the mail out of there, and they're going to make copies of checks mm-hmm. with your account number and your routing number on it. So the higher the frequency of check writing, the more kind of higher the probability that you could be susceptible to fraud. So it doesn't necessarily matter on the size of the business. It's just like what's the type of activity the business is doing.
Good. I mean, not good, but like, thank you for that clarification. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I think what the biggest thing for me is, for me as a business owner, I think M&T is a great partner to have because they're big enough to get to you, but they're small enough to care. And, you have that personal relationship. If I'm trying to make business moves because we have that relationship, when you talk about the first C, character, you'd be like, well, Ryan or Nate or whoever, I know this guy. He runs a good business. I've been ingrained in his business, and that matters in the conversation. So that's a huge leg up. It's also great to support local, right? But because you're messing with bank and bank money and needing money and growing, and when I started 5 years ago, I had no idea that, we'd have a building and all this, the stuff that we have. And I had no idea that a banker would be important to me. So as time goes on, that those relationships matter more and more. Plus I get a Ravens check card. You know what I mean? Little bird on it.
That's right.
Comes back in there.
That's right. Yeah, and it's so as I've kind of grown in the years at the bank, I used to think that within the bank you have like the salesperson who's meeting with the client, then you have the underwriter who's going to review the deal, and like there's going to be no communication between the two.
It's going to be an email.
It's like you just kind of put it in the black box, and then the underwriter looks at it, and like the client approves. Mm-hmm. It's been really cool as I've as I've moved over to the business banking division to see the collaboration between myself and the underwriter to actually, I can have a conversation with them and explain what's going on in the business, explain the nuances, explain the one-time expenses that may not be occurring every year that are impacting the cash flow for this particular year, and explain the character of the business owner. So like that doesn't happen, I don't think, at other banks.
Right.
I wouldn't know because I've never worked at another bank. But like I was surprised just internally at M&T, the fact that we can pick the phone up, have a conversation, have a WebEx. I can even walk down the hall to the underwriter's office and say, hey, here's what I'm looking at. What do you think? What are some questions I can ask proactively to make sure that we're in the best situation for an approval?
Yeah.
Have you had any super weird businesses that you needed to make a case for? You're like, this is just odd. This is an odd company.
This guy takes fish poop and puts it in grass.
That's what your brain came up with?
Yeah.
That
The
fast?
second you said that.
Certainly haven't had that. Haven't had that yet.
No fish poop.
No fish poop.
No, I haven't had too many odd requests come through. I did meet with a nonprofit organization that, and this was part of what they did was they take compost material and they make bags out of it, like a substitute for a plastic bag. And I'm like, wait, so this is made out of like food? I'm like, this is incredible. Yeah.
So like a bag you would put your sandwich in for your lunch?
Does the bag stink over time?
No.
Oh, cool.
I guess it
that
then
is pretty
can
cool.
biodegrade quickly
Exactly.
back to compost.
Exactly. Just looking at the bag, you would think it's a plastic bag.
Yeah. But if you're really
not.
hungry, you can eat it.
You could eat that thing.
Yeah, I didn't ask that question, but maybe.
It's healthier than a McDonald's cheeseburger.
You forgot to put your sandwich in the lunch bag, but you just got the bag. So I was like, whatever.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I guess I'm often thinking about businesses that are like, traditional, like, because that's the space that I live in is like a service-based business that, if someone came to you for a loan for, an automotive repair shop or something like that, then it kind of makes sense, straightforward. But if someone's got a new invention,
Yeah.
that's got to be a little challenging to figure out, like, how do we loan these people money? Yeah. Because this is unproven.
Yeah, I actually was speaking to a guy a few weeks ago who came up with this technology that kind of looks at the back of someone's eye, and can determine some specific diseases that they could be susceptible to. And I was like, man, that's crazy. You developed that? And he's like, yeah, smart guy. And they're looking to build more of these equipments and pieces of machine. And I think it's like $250,000 for a piece of machinery that they created. And I'm like, geez. So that was, a bit of a complicated deal to talk through, just because there was so many owners out, like people who had injected equity into the business. So the ownership structure was expansive. There was a lot of people who had ownership in the company. So it was, a little more difficult than I anticipated.
It's fun, man. I think it's fun that you get to hear people's stories. You get to be like on the cusp of hearing some of their dreams and their pitches. I'm sure they're super passionate about what they do, and then you get a chance to partner with them to see like their dream come to life. Yeah, it's been great. I'm definitely someone who I care about serving people and helping people out. So when I can connect with someone and learn about what they do, learn about how they do it, I get some type of satisfaction when I can serve someone and help them with what they're doing. So it's been very rewarding. Who are your heroes? Good question. So my mom and dad are awesome. They helped me get a solid foundation growing up. So like I have to throw my mom and dad out there, but recently, obviously as you get older, you kind of move away from your mom and dad. But more recently, so I'll throw out two people, and you wouldn't think these two people would be compared. Okay. So the first one would be Jesus. Great. Like my faith is huge and has been, 9 years ago, got connected with Mosaic, the church that we go to. And it's been huge in my life. Good. So Jesus and David Goggins. Okay. So you wouldn't think but knowing you, that makes total sense. You wouldn't think those two people would be influenced. But Jesus, just in terms of like how I live my life, and just like how to approach people, how to approach
pretty much everything about life. And then Goggins, yeah, I came across him in 2017, and he's just all about mindset and helping you realize you're more capable of what you think you can do. And his big thing is like life is all one big mind game. So life is all in your head. And if you can control what's in your head, you can control like how you respond to things. So he's all about like, hey, you got to push yourself further than what you can do because you're only at 40%. You can push past 40%. You're capable of a lot more. So yeah, I'm someone who like things rattle around your head. You always battle with like self-doubt, insecurity. And like, he's like, yeah, that's real, but you can't dwell on it. You got to get past that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's in that ultra marathon space, physical, like he's pushing a lot of physical limits.
Yeah.
But it applies to a lot of things in life.
Yeah. I heard the podcast that he was on with Rich Roll back in 2017. And he was like, I ran 100 miles without training. And I was like, get out of here. 100 miles without training. And that just like something flipped in my head to be like, this dude can run 100 miles without training and like almost died, broke his legs. And I get fired up about that. I don't know. It's weird. Like people are like, and that's weird.
You're
like,
doing it next month, right? Or a couple months. You're doing a big.
Yeah, I'm supposed to. It's supposed to be. I'm signed up for a race June 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you shifted away from getting hit in a football game and you towards like sports like mountain biking or running, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I finished playing football and I was like, I want to stay in shape, but I don't want to do stuff I'm gonna hurt my body. So I didn't do like flag football. I didn't do intramural sports like that. So like I don't want to break my bone or twist an ankle or like mess my knee up doing stuff like that. So I like just like started running and
I got into mountain biking though.
Thankfully, no injury, but like through running, I essentially like ran my knees into the ground. I had knee surgery back in 2020 and I was out for several weeks. So I'm trying to like get back to the path of running again. So you may be like, well, why do you want to go run 100 miles if you tried to do that before and you hurt your knee? And I guess that's why David Goggins is.
I'm watching it wash over your face now going, yeah, why do I want to do that?
Yeah. No,
I see him inspired. He really wants to do it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Very cool.
How do people stay in touch with you, man? And like what you're doing, if there's somebody listening, it's like, hey, I would like to have a better relationship with my bank and I want to talk to Matt. How do people stay in touch with you?
Yeah. So email, cell phone, I can share my cell phone number.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep. 443-465-8348. Again, 443-465-8348. So that's my cell phone number. You can give me a call, shoot me a text. You can email me, mbielecki1@mtb.com. And then, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I just started improving my LinkedIn, my LinkedIn performance, I guess you can say, over the past few weeks. I had not been a huge fan of LinkedIn or social media, but I figured because I'm connecting with so many people, I should probably start getting on LinkedIn. So
that's good.
Cell phone, email, LinkedIn.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for being with us. You're a good leader, and you care about people, and you just happen to do it with banking. So thank you. I think people get a lot out of it. So thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.